Greetings YouTubers, welcome to Shondo RC. Today we're going to be talking about radio systems. There's a lot of radio systems out there these days. Some are more popular than others. Some are difficult to program and use. Some are easy to program and use. And we're going to go over today some of the differences between a couple of the radios like you see set before me here. I have a Spektrum DX6E we're going to talk about a little bit. And I have an FrSky Tyrannus Plus. If you've seen my last video criticizing the DX6E, you'll know that I'm probably not a big Spektrum fan, and it's for various reasons. It's not a terrible radio, but you know the issues that we have where we fly out at our specific field, this thing is prone to interference, and for various reasons, and it's not all Spektrum's fault. However, because it's prone to interference, you know, we're kind of forced to fly a specific radio system out there, or a couple of different specific radio systems that guarantee we keep our airplane in the air. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit right here, right now. And I also want to talk about the cost and the usage of these radio systems, because FrSky gets kind of a bad rap when it comes to first-time users or new people that's in the hobby, because it can be a little bit difficult to program. Well, I'm going to be doing some more videos that will show you how to set up the radio later on for basic fixed wing flying, and then some other videos later on about how to mix certain things, you know, to make the plane fly comfortably and fly the way you want it to. And the issue is of why FrSky gets such a bum rap is when most people get into this hobby, they tend to go out and they buy something like the Spektrum radio or something else that seems to be more popular in the hobby. If you start out with something like FrSky and you learn to use it, and it doesn't take any longer to use that radio than it does the Spektrum radio, you don't have a problem with that radio at all. The issue is most people are using Spektrum or something else, and there's more information at your club concerning that radio and more people there to help you with that than there is for the FrSky. But if you jump right into the FrSky from the get-go, you're not going to have any more issues than you would be programming a Spektrum. But I want to talk about Spektrum and FrSky here for just a moment and talk about, you know, the radio and the radio issues that like we've had out at the field, where we get a lot of brownouts and a lot of interference that can interfere with the Spektrum system. You know, years ago when they came out with the Spektrum system, they used what they called a DSM2 technology. DSM2, like I told you in the last video, what it was designed to do is pick two channels on the entire 2.4 spectrum, and it would only utilize those two channels. So if it suffered interference on a specific channel that it was linked to, it would go ahead and it would jump to the second channel. The issue with Spektrum, as many of you all know, that anytime Spektrum has to reboot when it suffers interference or a brownout or whatever it may be, there's a few second delay before you have control of that aircraft again. And in a few seconds, if you happen to be close to the ground or whatever, that airplane is gone. It's going to smash into the ground, it's going to be in a million pieces, and there's just nothing you can do about it. And about the time it hits the ground is when it decides to link back up and you're good to go again, but too late. FrSky, on the other hand, you know, it uses the ACCST technology, which is, they call it the Advanced Continuous Channel Shifting Technology. And what it does is it uses all of the channels on the 2.4 spectrum, and it does not jump as needed. It continuously jumps those channels all of the time while you're flying that aircraft. And as a result of that, like I had mentioned in the previous video, if you suffer interference on a specific channel that radio happens to be on, it may have already jumped 40 or 50 more channels, and you're never going to know it. And not only that, if it suffers interference, its link-up time, you know, whether it be from a brownout or whatever it may be, is instantaneous. So in most cases, you might hear a little glitch or something in the airplane, like an electric motor just like throttle down for a split second, then back up, because it's already linked itself back up and you have full control of the aircraft again. But with the new DSMX technology that Spektrum has now, and I believe I told you that what it did is it picked 4 channels, reducing your interference rate by 50%, whoop-de-doo. I may have been wrong at that because I've done some further research and I've done some studying concerning that, and the DSMX actually uses the entire spectrum as well. Now, whether it does continuous hopping or not, I don't know. Based on what we see out there and the things that go wrong constantly with Spektrum, I would say no. I would say that it hops to the next channel when it has an issue, and due to the slow link-up time that Spektrum has a habit of, and you know this by when you turn your radio on and power up your airplane on the bench, there's a couple of seconds before those servos are moving. That may still be the issue with Spektrum, I don't know. But in doing research and looking at blogs and other YouTube videos and testing of the Spektrum radio, I did see where a lot of people did complain of that there was a longer boot up time and a relink to the receivers that was causing issues. Spektrum is also extremely prone, based on the blogs and everything else I've researched and studied out there, on receiver and antenna placement. And we see that all the time. We hear those excuses from Spektrum concerning that, where they say that, okay, you've had a brownout, you've blacked out, you've had a hijacking, whatever. You've probably had your receiver mounted incorrectly. Now, that is the case with Spektrum. If you don't mount the receiver correctly and have the antennas in the area that they tell you to put them in, you're going to probably have an issue if an issue arises. FrSky, on the other hand, is a little bit different. FrSky, I've mounted receivers in all different kinds of ways in the airplanes. I've put them underneath things that, you know how airplanes are. Sometimes you don't have a choice. You've got to cram that thing in there the best you can by all the other wires and everything else that's in there. There's never been an issue. And based on all the research and the studying and the YouTube videos I personally have watched and going through all the blogs and watching independent testing, that's always been a non-issue with FrSky. It really doesn't matter. So the link-up time for FrSky compared to the Spektrum is much quicker, almost instantaneous, which is a huge plus. And, going through all these blogs and watching independent studies on the Spektrum system, they are very prone to brownout and blackout issues, especially if you don't have the receiver mounted correctly. And this could be why this thing's more prone to interference when there's a lot of radio signals in the area, because even though you've got the receiver mounted in the airplane or whatever it is, and it's flying good under normal conditions, if there happens to be some small interference out there or moderate interference because of the position of the mounting of that receiver, it may be lights out for that thing. So that's something to consider too, I guess, if you're going to go with Spektrum, is make sure you mount this thing exactly like they tell you. Make absolutely sure you do all of your range testing and other tests before you put that thing in the air. But at the same time, based on everything we've done at our field, we've tried to follow all those rules and procedures. We still have an issue out there, and it's mostly with Spektrum. But if you're new to the hobby, you need to know this right now. We, like I said in the previous video, we're in a precarious situation out there. We've got a lot of radio signals. We've got a lot of Wi-Fi going on. We've got a military base that's just on the other side of our property. We've got all kinds of things, cell phone towers. I mean, there's a lot of energy floating through that airspace out there. So most of you people out there that are going to fly these airplanes, you're going to go out and fly in cow fields, parks, or whatever. You may not have these issues. And if you don't have those precarious situations out there, Spektrum may be just fine for you. But I'm going to hope to change your mind anyway, because you don't know whether or not you have a precarious situation out there. And most of these situations that involve radio interference and things like that, and brownouts and blackouts or whatever it may be, they're intermittent anyway. So because you've went out there and you've flown 14,000 times and never had an issue, it doesn't mean you're not going to have an issue eventually. So you want to try to do whatever you can to protect your equipment and protect your investment in this hobby right away. So that's why I recommend going with FrSky over Spektrum, which is well known to have these issues. And FrSky is well known to be rock solid without these issues. But there are more reasons to go with FrSky than just that. Take, for instance, that DX6E that you see on the right. That's a $200 radio. That thing is $179.99 all day long, without a case, without a receiver. If you purchase it with the receiver, you get a 6-channel receiver, and it is $200. That's pretty expensive for a 6-channel radio, no matter how good they say that radio is. That's expensive. The radio that you see on the left-hand side is an FrSky Taranis Plus. It's better quality, it's got better gimbals, better hardware, name brand electronics that are inside that board. It comes with a case, comes with its neck strap. It also comes with a rechargeable battery installed, which is a nickel metal hydride 2000 milliamp. Comes with a charger. You get that for like $189. 16 channels for $189. It also is based off the OpenTX technology, which is basically limitless. That radio is only limited in terms of your imagination. You can set up anything in that radio. You can configure any switch to do anything you want in that airplane. You can configure any switch to do anything you want in that radio. Unlike Spektrum, Spektrum is limited. There's things in there you can't do. OpenTX, the sky is actually the limit. And it is a little tricky at first to learn if you're coming off of a radio system that's like Spektrum. Spektrum is very easy to set up if you've been doing it. But if you're new to the hobby, you're going to have to ask a lot of questions concerning your Spektrum as well. So you might as well just go ahead and jump into the FrSky, because you're going to ask just the same amount of questions no matter what radio you go with. It was hard for me to go to FrSky because I spent 3 or 4 years flying Spektrum before I went to it. So when I got to the FrSky, I was like, holy moly, you got to be a rocket scientist to do this. But now that I know the radio is extremely easy, a lot easier than you think it is. It's easy to set up. If I'd have just gone with it in the first place, it'd have been a non-issue. So I'm going to be creating videos along the way, kind of teaching you and showing you how to set that radio up easily. And you're going to find it's going to be extremely easy to do, and I'm going to explain things in layman's terms so that you'll get a grasp on what I'm trying to tell you. There's a lot of videos out there that tell you what to do, but they're not telling you why. So, and everything I learn, I'm kind of a why guy. You can show me how to do something, but if I don't know why, I'm just as confused as I was when I first started doing it. But we're going to teach you why. So if we can get that why in there, then you're going to know how to set this thing up, and you're going to know what you got to do for other features that you want to set up in the future. But let's talk about these two radios for a second here. I want to go over some of the things here. I've got some stuff wrote down here concerning pricing on these radios. The Spektrum 6-channel radio that you see sitting right there, I'd already told you is $179. It comes with just the radio, no case, nothing else. They are friendly enough, though, to give you 4 AA batteries to plug into the back of it. And any of you that's been in the hobby long enough, you know that AA batteries don't last long flying. If you're lucky, you're going to get a weekend out of them, and you're going to be replacing batteries again, which is a hassle, and it really is. I mean, they need to get out of that and just make everything rechargeable from now on, because, we are in 2019 now. It's time to move on. But if you purchase the battery, a rechargeable battery for it, which is a lithium-ion battery, and you purchase the charger as well, you're going to be well over about $250 or so by the time you set that radio up, and all you're going to get out of this thing is 6 channels. You're not getting anything else. And then you're going to have to buy receivers for your airplanes as well. And the cheapest receiver that Spektrum sells is $39.99. That's a 6-channel receiver for $39.99. If you want to move up and you want to have more channels than that, up to 20 channels, which the radio won't hold anyway, you're going to have to buy the more expensive Spektrum radio to handle the 20 channels. But a 20-channel receiver through Spektrum is $220. That's extremely expensive. But then you're going to have to buy the expensive radio that Spektrum offers to handle that 20 channel, which is $1,350. Wow. And I know you're thinking, if you're just getting in the hobby, well, I'm just going to fly this little 4-channel airplane. Yeah, that's what I said for like a month. Then I moved to 6 channels. Then I started getting cool stuff with lights. Then I need 7 and 8 channels. Then I wanted flaps. So you got to take all that stuff into consideration, that all that stuff is going to use separate channels. So you want to try to maximize more bang for your buck. So, don't shoot yourself in the foot buying a transmitter. Don't go out and buy the cheapest transmitter you can find to get started when you can just go out and buy one, like that Taranis that I've got over there on the left-hand side. You can buy that 16-channel radio for $179, and you're going to fly with that thing for years and probably not outfly the channels in that thing for a very long time. But the Spektrum receivers, they run from $39.99 to $219. And the radios run from $179 to $1,350. Holy moly. Sure, you could buy a cheaper Spektrum radio, but it's not real programmable. You can't do anything with it. They've got a smaller radio that's, I think, somewhere around $70 or so, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't even have a screen on it. It's just got switches you got to flip to reverse things. Now, FrSky, their price range. You buy a FrSky radio, you don't have to buy a battery for it. It comes with one. It comes with a charger, $179. Their receivers, they run anywhere from like $27 to $40. Can you believe that? $27 to $40. And you're thinking, yeah, but what kind are they? Well, the $27 receiver is an 8-channel, not a 6-channel. Okay, it's not a 6-channel receiver, it's an 8-channel receiver. And the $40 receivers, they go from 8 to 16 channels. So it's like, wow, you know, you get all them features on that thing, not to mention the range. The range on an FrSky, you know, FrSky is advertising they're getting 1.5 kilometers. Okay, that's like a mile out of their receivers and their radio systems. Users that are using these things, and a lot of them are using them for a lot of FPV craft, you know, they're reporting up to 2 miles or so, or a little over 2 miles out of a stock radio with a stock receiver. And it's pretty awesome. And listen, I can attest to that. I've got friends that fly FPV. I've stood there and watched the screens with them and looked at the numbers as they were flying 2 miles out with no issues and coming right back with a stock Taranis radio. I'll be darned if I do that with any Spektrum, that's for sure. Spektrum also claims that they get up to 1 mile, which would be 1.5 kilometers as well. Users, and you can look it all up and do your own research, are attesting that that's a lot less than that. They're getting less than that. Sometimes they're getting a half a mile, sometimes they're getting 3/4 of a mile, sometimes they're getting a 1/4 mile. And again, like I said, that's probably got a lot to do with how they're placing that receiver in that aircraft, or whether or not there might be heavy radio signals in the air. And I know you're wondering, you're thinking to yourself, you know, well, that's the radio signal things. How does that exactly work? Well, let me tell you something about the 2.4 Spektrum. When 2.4 radios came out, that was great because there really wasn't a whole lot on that at the time, other than some telephones and some, you know, Wi-Fi routers and things like that back then. But now everything and its mother out there just seems to use 2.4. So that river is getting a little bit flooded right now. So there's a lot on that out there in that atmosphere. So making it more prone every day for things to suffer interference because of that. And we have, you know, some problems out of our field when there's interference or whatever that, you know, people right away blame it on this or that, or they'll pick up their cell phone and they'll go, well, I can see such and such as Wi-Fi. This business is Wi-Fi. I can pick it up on my phone. Well, that doesn't mean anything. As long as it's operating within the legal power limits according to the FCC, that's not going to interfere with your radio. What interferes with it is when it's operating out of those power limits and each one of those channels is completely swamped by devices that doesn't leave room for your device to be on those specific channels. So that's what really goes on, and that's what we were dealing with out there. Is we had a Wi-Fi system out there from an internet, from a business. So you had 2 Wi-Fi systems out there, and they were completely operating out of the legal range. They were completely swamping every single channel on the 2.4 at a power range that was so high that absolutely nothing else could share that spectrum and operate on it because it controlled everything. We did get them to turn that down and stuff, but still from time to time we're having issues. And this is another thing I'd like to tell you too. If you're running Wi-Fi systems in your home with your routers and stuff, turn them down a little bit. You don't need them that powerful. You don't, listen, if you set up a Wi-Fi system in Florida at your house, a Wi-Fi router, it doesn't need to be so powerful to where you can watch your recorded SpongeBob videos at Grandma's house in Connecticut. It don't need to be that powerful, you know. And always set your router too. There's a setting in there you can go in there and you can make it just look at 1 or 2 channels instead of looking at all the channels. You know, that's what I do with mine. Why? Because everything in my house is running off 2.4. I don't want it interfering with everything else as well. So if I limit it to just using a channel or 2, it's not going to go out of that range. It's never going to malfunction. It's going to work perfectly fine, but it's going to leave room for everybody else to be on that spectrum as well. But, you know, I want you to stay tuned because I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go through some other videos with you. I'm going to probably put one together this weekend showing you basic setup on the FrSky Tyrannus for setting up a fixed wing aircraft. It's extremely easy to do, guys. It's not hard at all, and for some of you guys out there that's been flying FrSky, you would probably agree with me. The only reason it's hard is because people just don't know it and they've never picked it up and tried it. It's not really that bad. I know at your clubs, like I've said before, everybody out there is flying Futaba or they're flying Spektrum or whatever. Spektrum is hard to set up too if you've never done it. But because more people are flying it, there's more information out there locally at your own personal clubs and people out there at your club that can help you set that thing up pretty quickly because they know how to do it. But you know, if you had a bunch of people in your club that flew FrSky, it's the same learning curve. It really is. But you're going to be more happier with that radio. It's going to be cheaper for you in the long run to operate. It's going to be rock solid. Everybody that flies that thing out at my club, and believe me, I've got over 50% of that club now flying an FrSky, and we've been flying it for years. There hasn't been a single radio issue with the FrSky. Nobody has had a brownout. Nobody has had an interference. Even when our radios tell us there's interference in the air, because that radio will talk to you and tell you if there's a signal loss, there's never been any changes in the control of the aircraft. Why? Because we've jumped to another channel and we're moving on. Think about that, guys, before you buy a radio. Don't spend $200 for a radio that can get you caught with your pants down in a precarious situation concerning radio signals. Go ahead and spend the $200 for a radio, so you're not going to have to buy any more radios as you advance in this hobby for years to come. 16 channels. You're going to have it a long time. 6 channels. You're going to outgrow that within a year. Trust me. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit the like button. Hit subscribe if you haven't hit subscribe, because there's going to be some fantastic videos coming out on here. I'm going to do reviews, product illustrations and stuff as time goes on. Anytime I get something new and something neat, I'm going to put it on here and show you how to use it. I'm going to always try to explain things in layman's terms for you so you can understand it better. A lot of the videos that are out there concerning FrSky, there's a lot of great ones out there, but it's like any other kind of open source technology out there. Like, yeah, if any of you know anything about Linux, you know, Windows computer systems, and you've got Linux computer systems, anytime you looked up anything concerning videos and stuff about Linux, the person explaining it to you was already assuming you were a rocket scientist when he was explaining it to you, so you still had no clue what the heck he was talking about. And there's a lot of videos out there concerning the FrSky Tyrannus that's just like that. I am not going to do that on this channel. I'm going to talk to you as if that is the first time that you've ever picked up a radio in your life. You're going to understand it, trust me. But hit the subscribe button and stay tuned. There's more to come. Have a great day.